A lot of us grew up hearing the music of our next guest, the great Leon Russell. He's played with, he's written for, he's produced, he's performed as well, of course. But he's played with the biggest names in pop and rock. And up until his first solo album, he had musically mixed with people like the Mamas and the Papas, the Byrds, the Beach Boys, Sonny and Cher, Frank Sinatra, the Rolling Stones. His first songwriting hit, Delta Lady, which became such a smash for Joe Cocker, and after which Leon Russell organised the famous Mad Dogs and Englishman tour. The classic A Song for You appeared on that first Leon Russell album. He co-wrote Superstar, which the Carpenters took to the top of the charts. And then there was the success of Leon Russell and the Shelter People. Last October, Leon was high-flying again with the collaboration album The Union with Elton John. He earned a Grammy nomination. And just last month, he was inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Leon Russell is in New Zealand for one Auckland concert on the 21st of April. And he joins us now. Leon, hello.
How are you?
Well, it would take a day to go through your whole career, so I'll start with the recent bits. The Elton John collaboration, how did that come about for you, Leon?
Well, Elton, I was watching a soap opera on TV, laying in my bed, and the phone rang, and it was Elton calling up, and he said, well, let's do a record together. And I said, yeah, thank you very much. Let's do that.
You were keeping a low profile at the time, I understand. You were just doing small shows.
Well, I wasn't purposely keeping a low profile, but, I did happen to have one at that time.
Yes. Elton John, of course, is quoted as saying it bothered him that you weren't more of a household name. That puzzles those of us for whom you are a household name. But he also says that you disappeared for a while and he always wondered what happened to you. And I think a lot of people do. What can I ask you, what did happen to Leon Russell when you shut up the shutters and nobody heard about you?
Well, I just one of those guys that I don't have much experience with the press, and I really hated doing interviews, and I didn't do them, and consequently, I kind of disappeared and fell off the screen.
Yes,
so that's my own fault, I'm sure.
No, it sounds like you did it for all the right reasons. So, what can I ask you? What was the first studio session like with Elton John and also producer T-Bone Burnett? What a moment!
Well, it's pretty amazing, really. We got to sit down and play the piano together. And, Elton credits me with being a huge influence on him. I really didn't know that. It's not like we spoke every day. I actually hadn't spoken to him in 35 years when he called me. So I was kind of surprised to hear that. He said, people have all kinds of influences, 60 or 70 influences, but Leon has influenced me more than all those people put together. So it's pretty exciting to hear that. I didn't know anything about it.
He was quite emotional too in the studio. It was quite an emotional meeting, I understand, between the two of you.
Well, I was trying to figure out what I could give him in return for what he was giving me, which is a substantial chunk of show business reality. And so I decided that about the only thing I could give him that he didn't have, I would write him a song. And I was telling my wife about it. I was laying in bed, and as I told her, the song started coming out. So I grabbed my computer and wrote the lyrics. And the next day when I got to the studio, I was kind of anxious to go in and play it to hear what it was going to sound like because I had forgotten the music that I wrote it to in the evening before. So I went in there and recorded it, and it's called In the Hands of Angels. And when I got back out there, they were all out in the lobby crying. And it made an impact on him. Well, I'm glad that he liked it.
He loved it. Yeah, I heard about them being out in the lobby crying. And of course, all the critics say it's a big album. It went to number 3 on Billboard, and I know you performed together recently on Saturday Night Live too.
Yeah, just last Saturday night, actually.
Right. So that's recent. And the critics say of the album, in praising it, they also note that you haven't lost your songwriting ability. And this might seem like a strange question, but I imagine you go back into a studio, do you, and you think, have I still got it? Does that happen?
Well, I suppose that happens to everybody from time to time. But I have had studios in my houses for the last 45 years, and I wasn't used to being in, public studios. And so it was interesting. I wasn't used to having a producer, so all that stuff was new for me. Yeah, it was interesting.
Well, the pressure was obviously on, and you came through it with flying colours, actually. But
I hope so.
how big a moment, can I ask you, was your induction, which seems belated, into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame this year as well?
Well, that's all Elton's doing. That's what he set out to do. That he set out to get me inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame and raise my profile. And that's in my acceptance speech. That's what I tried to indicate. The thing that was really more important to me than receiving the Hall of Fame commitment was that Elton had done this for me, and it was quite amazing, really.
You've worked with so many of the greats, and you did so from an early age. I mean, by your early 20s, you were in the LA studio band, the Wrecking Crew, and gee, the number of people who came through those studios who you met. Can I ask you, because a lot of New Zealanders know you, I think, from the whole Mad Dogs and Englishmen phase of your life, how big does that sit with you now? Was that a highlight for Leon Russell?
Well, it was a lot of fun. I mean, Joe and Denny Cordell came over and asked me to help him with it, and so I just started reeling off, "I'll do this, we'll do this, we'll do that," and somebody was writing it down, unbeknownst to me. And the next day, they had it all set up. It was ready to go. So all I had to do was call a few friends and get them on the stage. It was quite fun, actually.
You were kind of like the genius eminence of rock then. You were the epitome of cool. You were sitting at those keyboards, and you had such a star cast around you too. It was a huge period for music in general, wasn't it?
It seemed to be. I don't know. It was a huge period for me, for sure.
Your first solo album, also Leon, in 1970, which a lot of people will remember, which had such great songs on it, that had a dream cast too. You assembled a remarkable number of people for that.
Yeah, that was actually Glenn Johns was largely responsible for that. I went over to, I can't remember the studio in London with my partner Denny Cordell to cut the album, and Glenn Johns was engineering, and one of the songs was playing. I said, "Boy, Eric would really be good on that." And he said, "I'll call him up." So next thing I knew, Eric was down there playing on it, and the same thing with the Rolling Stones and a bunch of different people. He called them. He was responsible for that.
From memory, you had Joe Cocker, you had Eric Clapton, Steve Winwood, you had 3 of the Stones, and you had 2 of the Beatles at one point on that album. That's a phenomenal achievement.
Yeah, it was. I mean, I'm not sure, as I said, it was due entirely to me. I think it's the fact that Glenn works with all those guys, Glenn Johnson. He called them up and asked them to do it. And they had heard, I think they heard my record that I did with Delaney and Bonnie. It had a song on it that they liked, or what, I don't know what it was. But anyway, they came and played. I was really grateful. It was great.
Yeah, well, it just shows what esteem they held you. And there were projects. There was the concert for Bangladesh, which you were heavily involved with, which was way before Live Aid, wasn't it? It would have been the world's first major benefit concert?
Yeah, it's the first one that I know about. There hadn't been any others before, I don't think.
Which also would have been quite a thing to be a part of. Did you realize the size of that at the time?
Well, it was George Harrison asked me to do it, asked me to help him. And, I mean, George, he's one of the Beatles. It's the governor. So it was pretty exciting, really. I figured it was going to be pretty big.
It was big. Is it also exciting, can I ask you, Leon Russell, for artists like yourself, when a new generation discovers you? Do you experience that from younger people when they meet you and from what you hear of what they think of you?
Yeah, it's nice. I was leaving Saturday Night Live the other day, and this young girl, she couldn't have been more than 18 or 17, and she said, Leon, my favorite album is The Union. I listen to it every day, all day. So it's nice to hear that stuff,
It surprises many of us, I think, that, Elton John kind of rediscovered you because you've never gone away in the minds of a lot of people. You must have steady correspondence, steady fan input over the years that reminds you of that, surely.
That remind me of what?
Oh, the fact that Leon Russell is a name that hasn't been forgotten, if you know what I mean.
Well, I have a group of people that are my supporters called the Lifers, the Leon Lifers.
Yeah.
And they come to really an immense number of shows and correspond with each other and with me all the time. And it's not quite like the Grateful Dead, but, it's about 400 or 500 of them, so it's quite nice.
Yeah, that's a nice little retinue. And you've still obviously got, as they say, the passion for the business?
Well, I don't suspect that I'll be selling insurance anytime soon. I mean, it's really, it's what I know how to do. Other than that, I couldn't say.
Auckland is the first stop on your new tour, I understand. Can you give us any set list clues, any kind of idea of what sort of show you're bringing down?
Well, I just play songs that I like, and some of them are mine and some of them aren't. And so that's what it is. There's old songs and a few new songs. But it's just really songs that I like. Some of them are 30 years old from other people.
And there'll be the songs that are associated with you. You'll play some of them as well.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
What's your current band lineup for this tour, can I ask you, Leon?
Well, I have 2 guitar players and a bass player and a drummer, and they all sing. And that's about the size of it.
It's interesting to talk to a legend. Do you see yourself that way?
Not really. From my point of view, it's all pretty much the same. That is a way of life like any other, I guess.
It's a working musician's way of life.
I think so.
Yeah. A lot of people are pleased you're coming. It's very nice of you to give us the interview, and we look forward to seeing you down here in Auckland on the 21st of April, Leon.
Well, thank you very much. I appreciate it.
The great Leon Russell talking to us on Afternoons.